May 10th, 2004. Teenager burned at Boka Kegger party. Friday night at approximately 11:30 p.m., Truckee resident Krista Williams, 19, fell into a bonfire at a high school party near Boka Reservoir and suffered first and second-degree burns on her arms, chest, and nose. Williams was quickly pulled from the fire by a Tahoe Truckee high school student who, along with 3 other fellow and former students, immediately began first aid on Williams. 3 of the people had first aid training, and 1 is a certified EMT and firefighter. The party, made up of mostly high school-aged kids, was located approximately 5 miles away from the reservoir in an area that party organizers had hoped would be impossible for law enforcement officers to find, party's attendees said. Due to the remote location, Williams' rescuers were unable to receive cell phone service and had to drive her to Boka Dam, where she was transferred to ambulance. Williams was transported to Tahoe Forest Hospital, where she was stabilized before being flown early Saturday morning to the burn center at the UC Davis Medical Center in Sacramento. She was listed as being in serious condition at the time of her transfer. According to Monica Williams, Krista's mother, Krista was expected to be released from the hospital and return home either Tuesday or Wednesday. The point is that we have 4 heroes here in Truckee, and they really went above and beyond the call of duty, said Monica, of the young men who helped save her daughter. My daughter would be dead, she added. Officers from Nevada County Sheriff's Office, the Truckee Police Department, and the California Highway Patrol later broke up the party, which eyewitnesses estimate had approximately 60-plus kids in attendance. Lieutenant Lee Osborne of the Sheriff's Office reported that the sheriff's deputies cited 1 juvenile at the party for a minor in possession of alcohol and another for public drunkenness. Both juveniles, whose names were not released, were released to the custody of their parents. CHP Public Affairs Officer Kirk Brommel was able to verify that the cellular 911 call about Williams' injuries came through the CHP's dispatch center, and Sergeant Rick Christensen of the Truckee Police Department said that the 2 Truckee police officers responded to the scene to assist deputies in breaking up the party Friday night. Apparently, many kids at Friday's party were not seriously affected by the events, as Placer County Sheriff's deputies broke up another large gathering of more than 100 kids on Saturday night, confiscated 2 kegs of beer, and handed out several citations for drinking and possession of marijuana, according to a press release. Many of the kids in attendance Saturday had also been at the Boka party where Williams was burned. It's been 20 years, and y'all still have not learned, have not done better, have not pushed your laws. None of it. 20 years later, 18 years later, and things like KielyRodni happen. You haven't learned. This is May 13th, 2004. Underage drinking spills out into town. Underage kids throwing parties in the woods outside of town is nothing new. But as an incident last Friday night at a party near Boka Reservoir illustrates, there is always danger involved when kids, cars, alcohol, and fire mix. The Boka gathering, at which 19-year-old Krista Williams of Truckee sustained second-degree burns after falling into an open fire, was quickly broken up by police when they received the 911 call about Williams' injuries. However, according to the Tahoe Truckee School senior Michelle Bergman, 17, Many of the students in attendance made their way to another party going on that night off of U.S. Forest Service Road 6 behind Ponderosa Palisades in Placer County. It is now known as Fire Access Road 6. Bergman, who drove the injured Williams to Boca Dam, where she was transferred to an ambulance, blamed the lack of options Truckee kids have for nighttime activities in the area. 20 years later, they now have skate parks. They have things for these kids to do. But yet, for some reason, whatever is going on in their lives, they still continue to throw these parties out in the middle of the woods. I guess there is just nothing to do around Truckee, so we all think, let's go out to Boca and have a party, she said. That sentiment was echoed by Monica Williams, the burned teen's mother. Most kids hang out in the woods because there is nothing else for them to do up here. We build all these houses up here, but we don't construct any youth centers. You have the rec center now. You have the skate park. You have all these things for these kids to do, but they still choose to drink underage. Law enforcement in the region are acutely aware of the dangers associated with large groups of teenagers gathering in the woods to drink and hang out. They're aware of this. The Boca party attracted an estimated 60 people, according to police. While many teenagers are responsible enough to designate a sober driver, no, that shouldn't even be happening. Your teenager shouldn't have to have the responsibility to find a designated driver because they shouldn't be drinking. While many teenagers are responsible enough to designate a sober driver, police said that when they arrive to break up a party, people often jump in their own or other people's vehicles and flee, regardless of whether the driver may have been drinking. According to Bergman, that was the case last Friday night at the Boca party. At this party, everyone who drove away was completely smashed, she said. Other dangers include the risk of fires getting out of control and spreading to other parts of the forest. That's a huge concern for local fire managers who cite lightning and illegal campfires as the top two causes of wildfires in the area. Warm weather means more parties. Nevada and Placer County Sheriff's deputies and Truckee police officers are preparing for a busy season responding to teenagers partying in remote locations around town, said Lee Osborne of the Nevada County Sheriff's Office. Kids going out and partying in the woods is a perennial problem, Osborne said. The party spots tend to be passed down from one class to the next. As police monitor the Boca area, kids will likely go someplace else to party. That was the case after Williams was burned at Friday night's gathering. Many of the students headed to the party off Forest Service Road 6 on Saturday night. That party was broken up by Placer County Sheriff's deputies with the assistance of CHP and Truckee police units. A press release issued by the Placer County Sheriff's Office stated that approximately 300 local kids attended Saturday's party. Deputies confiscated 2 beer kegs and other alcoholic beverages. They also issued several alcohol and marijuana-related citations. This is one example of the consequences of underage drinking and the lack of proper supervision, read the statement. The Lake Tahoe and Truckee law enforcement agencies will continue to work to curtail underage drinking, and parents need to know we will prosecute any adult that contributes to or facilitates one of these parties. By all accounts, getting alcohol is not much of a problem for Truckee youth. That's your problem. Bergman cited shoulder tapping, aka asking someone over 21 to buy alcohol for a minor, stealing and purchasing alcohol with fake IDs, as common methods minors use to obtain alcohol. If you go to Safeway, there's always someone there who will buy for you. And this 20 years later, I have the same local saying, yes, these kids can still go into Safeway and get alcohol. You have a problem, Truckee. Fix it. That thought has law enforcement personnel and parents worried, especially as young people head further out into the woods to evade law enforcement. I think it's a significant issue in Truckee, but it's an issue that needs to be addressed with law enforcement and parents, Truckee Police Chief Scott Berry said. I think law enforcement is working closely with the U.S. Forest Service, Nevada and Placer County Sheriffs, and the CHP to address the problem. 20 years later, you still haven't. We realize that most of these parties are not in Truckee's jurisdiction, but it is Truckee kids, and we'll do everything we can to keep them safe. You didn't. 20 years later, 18 years later, KielyRodni lost her life at a party. Berry said that one of the biggest obstacles they face is overcoming the idea that partying in the woods is something that all kids do. Unacceptable. It's not a rite of passage just because you're a senior in high school to be able to go out and drink in the woods. That rite of passage is when you're 21, Chief Scott Berry said.